Well, again, we're live, and sorry about that glitch. We're not that technical, as you can see. But anyway, here we are again. And as I was saying, we've got a very interesting topic this morning that not a lot of people know too much about, which is all about physical mediumship. But before we get to that, before we get to questions, we do have a couple of announcements, don't we,
Yes,
Carolyn?
we do.
We're going to say hello, first of all, to Gregor, who is on my right side. And I'll take that from you, thank you. And we're going to say hello to Gregor. As always, he's here. Carolyn, as always, is to my far right. But we have an announcement about the competition. So here we go with that. And this week's winner is Julia. Is that right?
Yes.
So this week's winner is Julia from Canada, and congratulations, Julia from Canada. And if you can email us, and we'll email you, and we're going to tell you what your prize is. So I think it's going to be a good prize. Are we giving her the new Eagle and the Rose audio? The new Eagle and the Rose audio. We're giving you the Angel book and maybe a couple of other things thrown in as well, Julia. So we hope you enjoy that. Are we doing the next question yet? Are we doing that now?
Yes.
All right. Oh, good. All right then. So
Week 5.
week 5. Gosh, we're getting down to the wire here. So week 5. This is a 3-part question. I'm reading this off. You must answer at least 2 parts of this question correctly to be eligible to win. You see how nice we're being. We're not going to make you answer the whole 3 questions or 3 parts. So here we have the question. Are you ready? I shall repeat it again probably at the end of this session. So in one of my weekly videos, I have music playing. So here are the 3 parts of the question. Who is the singer? What is the song? What is the name of the song? And what kind of music did I say my favorite music was? So that's 3 parts of the question, and I'll repeat that at the end. So, all right, so physical mediumship. That's our topic today. And the interesting thing is that not a lot of people know too much about this. So what I did was, we do have 2 or 3 questions from people that we're going to include. But what we did was I put some questions in there, because if you don't know too much about the subject, you really don't know what to ask and where we're going with this. So Carolyn, can we have our first question, please?
Yes, ma'am. What is physical mediumship?
Oh, so easy. Okay, all right. Okay, well, in a nutshell, and you'll learn more about it as we go along with the other questions. In a nutshell, physical mediumship is the kind of mediumship where the medium puts themselves in a situation, either through trance work, or doesn't have to be through trance work, but often it's through trance work, where those in the spirit world can use the physical body. And sometimes they can use the physical body, and they can in fact use a person's voice box. So you might be watching a medium in a trance state, and you might hear a very strange voice coming out of the medium's mouth. I know it sounds very weird, but I can vouch for it that it does happen, because it's happened to me. Or someone will literally sort of climb into the body, into the medium's body, and even use hands and arm movements and expressions and so on. But it's also taken a little step further. Physical mediumship is about sort of producing all kinds of things like ectoplasm, things like gifts we get from the spirit world. Physical mediumship is about the power and the energy that the medium can use in certain circumstances to move objects, to lift objects even. I mean, is it real? You've got to ask that question, right? I'm a very skeptical person. Is it real? Because in my skepticism many years ago, I would have said, no, it's not real. It's it's a nonsense. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. I'm a testament to the fact that it can happen because it's happened to me. So let's go to our questions, because the questions develop this subject even further. So Carolyn, can we have our next question, please?
Sure. Is the purpose of physical mediumship to prove that there is life after death?
Physical mediumship was very, very common years and years ago, sort of during the war years particularly, and pre-war years. In the early 1900s, a lot of mediums were physical mediums. I suppose people felt that this was more of a testament and an evidence of the spirit world, and that the spirit world existed. I've never myself personally used physical mediumship as a way to prove that life after death exists. For me, physical mediumship is simply another facet, another part of the whole thing. It's not about proving, it's about learning, understanding, and accepting. Let's have our next question.
Does the medium go into a trance? This is actually
you mean what? Okay. Yes. Does the medium go into a trance? Sometimes, not always. And there are 3 stages of trance. There's a light trance, where the medium sees everything, knows everything, hears everything, and can participate. So you sort of, the medium, when a medium goes into a trance state, the medium moves out of her body and often will allow someone else in to use her physical body. So in a light trance, the medium may not even vacate the body, and things may be going on around the medium. The medium can in some ways participate. In a medium trance, the medium will move out of the body, but still be aware and know what's going on, know what's being said, will be able to see those in the spirit world and also those in the room with her physically. And then a deep trance is something else entirely. The medium vacates the body, and I can only speak to my own experience. When I go into a deep trance, I'm aware of absolutely nothing at all, which is extremely frustrating, because when I then come back into my body and now I'm awake and I'm listening to everybody else talking about how great it was and what happened, it's very frustrating for me because I know nothing. So I hate it when I go into a deep trance, simply because I'm a very nosy person. I like to know what's going on. So what we did when I first started doing trance work, what we did was we always made sure that we recorded it so I could listen to it afterwards and be clued in onto the events. Next question.
Well, there you go. It kind of answers this one. Does the medium remember anything afterwards?
Oh, well, there you go. I don't need to answer that question now.
Can physical mediumship be hard on a medium's body?
Again, I can only speak for myself and my own experiences. Some mediums might tell you no, but I can tell you that it's physical mediumship. When you're doing trance work or any kind of physical mediumship, it can be very tough on the body, not only physically, but emotionally draining as well, because you're connecting with people or situations that are not usual. And you're connecting often with situations and people, and those situations being stressful. So it's not just a case of physically being a little bit exhausted. Depends what they have you do. It depends how many acrobatics they want to perform. And I've done 1 or 2 acrobatics, I can tell you, in my experience. But sometimes it's not so bad, and sometimes it's exhausting. Let's have our next question.
What are ectoplasm and protoplasm, and does everyone have it?
And is it real? Well, you can go on the web and you can look up, ectoplasm and all of that. And some people have some really very weird and wonderful ideas, and there are people who say it doesn't exist at all. But on a scientific level, and and I'm not a scientist, but on a scientific level, ectoplasm is that, and protoplasm is that substance that somehow makes up or is part of the creation of the cells, the living cells in our bodies. When a medium produces ectoplasm, and I've never produced ectoplasm, but when mediums produce ectoplasm, in theory, what happens is that they go into the trance state, and because of the energy and the energy force that surrounds you and is infused into you as you're in this trance state, the cells in your body, the living cells in your body, can actually shift and change. And in fact, the ectoplasm, that part of the substance of the cell structure, can actually leak out. That's, in theory, what happens. I have it on good authority from a man I trust very, very well. He tells me that he's actually seen it. He's seen a medium produce ectoplasm. And he tells me that he's even played with it in his hands, because it's sort of a bit like a dry, almost like a cobwebby substance. This is his description, not mine, his description, because I've never seen it. Now, again, years ago in the 1900s, early 1900s especially, there was a lot of this going on. A lot of it was fake, and some of it apparently was real. But we know that these things are very easy to conjure up. But I do believe, because Grey Eagle tells me of the existence of ectoplasm. And what is the reason for that? Why would you want this substance to leak out? What would the spirit world be wanting with it, or want to do with it? Okay, one of the things that was quite common was it would sort of leak out, and it's sort of like, if you like, it's almost like a grayish, whitish, cobwebby substance, and it could shroud the medium's face, and then in that shroud you might see the face of a loved one in the spirit world. Quite a common occurrence would be that the ectoplasm would turn into the shape of almost like a trumpet that could be used to hear the voices of the spirit world coming through the trumpet and using the trumpet. Again, I'm not saying that I've seen it, because I have not. I'm not saying 100% on my heart that I can tell you that it's real, because I can't. I have it on good authority from a man that I trust implicitly, that he has seen it, played with it. But what I can tell you is, when a medium puts themselves through this sort of, these physical changes, it is dangerous, which is probably why the practice is no longer in existence, because it's very dangerous for the medium. It's very dangerous for the physical well-being of the medium. So when they used to do physical mediumship years ago and use this ectoplasm and do all of this stuff, it was always in extremely controlled circumstances where the medium could not be, for instance, surprised or jolted out of the trance, or you couldn't have people walking in and out of the room. You certainly couldn't have telephones ringing, etc., etc. So it was always in extremely controlled circumstances. Next question, Carolyn.
What is direct voice?
Direct voice. Again, a direct voice is where a person in the spirit world will, depending on the means, I've seen it and I've experienced it personally, where a medium doesn't even have to go into, I'm talking about myself really, because I cannot speak for other mediums, so you don't even have to go into a trance state, but somehow the sound and somehow that person in the spirit world will use the medium's voice box and speak in their own voice. So you're getting that direct voice contact. Very often it happens when the medium goes into trance and somebody comes in and uses the medium's body and will use the voice box, will use the voice, and so on and so forth. And that's when you can hear it. There is another way, of course, and I've also experienced this, not very often, but I have experienced where you might be just sitting quietly by yourself and you can hear, literally hear, loud and clear, a voice from the spirit world. So, you know, there are various means of direct voice contact. It's all very interesting. I find it very fascinating. But okay, next question.
What is an apport?
An apport. An apport, well, actually, the question should be, what is it? What are these gifts that they call? And we call those gifts, those, for instance, if you find a feather at your feet, a flower sitting on your sofa, if you feel strongly, which sometimes happens, that someone from the spirit world has given you this gift, it's called an apport. This is called an apport, and an apport is an object that has transferred through time and space from here to here, usually from those in the spirit world to those of us who are on this earth plane. Again, this is so easy to fake. We had years ago, we had a medium who was in fact named Medium of the Year in Great Britain. I'm going back many, many years, and everybody thought he was amazing and fantastic because during his sessions, which were always closed sessions and always held in the dark, you know, that sort of is there anybody there stuff. Everybody thought he was wonderful because he, during these sessions, used to produce the most beautiful flowers, for flower heads, let me put it that way. And they thought he was wonderful until one day an investigator from one of the leading newspapers somehow had inveigled an invitation into this circle of people, and discovered that the apports were nothing more than coming from the back of the radio that he was using to play his tapes on, and he was discovered as a fake, which is a shame, really. So easy to produce these things, but I have experienced them myself, and I through other people I've experienced them, so I know that it happens. An apport is simply a gift, a physical gift, something that you can hold in your hand, a physical gift from those in the spirit world. Next question.
We've got a question from Fran.
From Fran.
Yes, she said, "Hi, from Fran again. I'm looking forward to this. Will you be talking about transfiguration? That's what someone said it was. During a stressful time years ago, she saw faces of the dear departed appear over faces of the living."
Transfiguration is very common. Again, it's part of physical mediumship. It's happened to me many times, and of course I can't, unless I'm looking in a mirror, I can't see myself. So you have to rely on other people to tell you. And sometimes my face will change, even during a session with someone. It can happen. You know, you can be just sitting there having a consultation with someone, and they can look at you and see their departed loved one that I'm making contact with. That doesn't happen very often, but it has happened, you know. And for a minute there, people say, "Oh, for a minute there, you just look like my dad," or "You just look like my mom," or whatever, because the face changes. But I have experienced this for myself, and this could be time for a story. So this happened to me with my youngest sister, who had come for a visit, and they were going back several years now. She'd come for a visit, and she was very curious about this subject, and she was very curious about, you know, what I did and how I did it, and she asked me if I could show her how to meditate. So we ended up, I was on the sofa. Don't ask how it got this way, but I was sitting on the sofa. She was actually sitting on the floor, cross-legged, and I was talking her through some sort of a meditation, and she sort of was sitting there with her eyes closed, and I was going through this meditation, helping her to understand a little bit about meditation, when completely unawares, out of the blue, with no warning whatsoever, I'm not looking at my sister anymore, I'm looking at my father. Now, my sister looks just like my mother, She has the same coloring as my mother, same shape face, and she's definitely got the same nose. She hates me when I say that, but she's definitely got my mother's nose, which I do not have. All right, so to say that all of a sudden I'm seeing my father it's not as if you can mistake it. It's not as if my sister looked a little bit like my father, because she doesn't. But this is what happened. I'm sort of talking my sister through meditation and sort of, you know, in my own little world as well. And then I look up at my sister's face, and there is my father's face. And my sister's face had sort of this almost sort of like an ectoplasmic type thing, but it wasn't ectoplasm. But it was like almost like a white shroud over my sister's face. And within that white shroud was my father, as clear could be. And I was so shocked that for a minute or two I didn't say anything, which tells you how shocked I was, because I'm rarely without words. And all of a sudden then my sister sort of stirred, and my father, his face completely disappeared, and my sister opened her eyes and she started crying. And I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that she'd had this vision about a little boy with blonde hair who'd been in a road accident. Well, we had her little boy staying with us, and he had blonde hair, and she had a friend who was also staying whose son had blonde hair. So she described this awful road accident and what have you, and she said, you know, it involved a big truck, a big heavy truck, and a car, and there was this awful crashing sound, and she was really upset. And so for the next several weeks we lived on tenterhooks, because I knew that my father had come to tell my sister something. Is this a warning for us? Was this a warning? Should we pay attention? So for quite a while after that, every time they went out, every time they were in a car or whatever, we worried a little bit. But as things do, eventually after a few months nothing happened, and we forgot all about it until the following year, when her husband took her son and then his family on a vacation to Greece. I'm not going to tell you the whole of it. Suffice it to say, they were driving up a steep mountain. They'd been for dinner. My sister's son was in the back seat with my sister's husband's new wife. Complicated issue there. Okay, so she was in the back seat with my nephew. And they were going up this hill, and they came up upon a big heavy truck that had boulders and concrete slabs and all sorts of things in it, and it was struggling to get up the hill. And as they came up behind it, the back of the truck opened up, just fell open, and all of this stuff came crashing down on them. It was a very serious accident. My sister's husband wasn't hurt, but the lady in the passenger seat was badly hurt. My nephew was not hurt, simply because the lady in the back seat with him threw herself over him and protected him, but she was severely injured. A truck going up a hill, a car, a little blonde boy, and so on. And my father trying to give us a message to let us know, basically not to frighten us, but to let us know it would be okay, and that my nephew Duncan would be safe. My father was watching over him, and that's what he was trying to say. So transfiguration is interesting. Yes, it happens, and there are all sorts of reasons why it happens, but usually when you see transfiguration and you have someone come like that, they've come with a message, they've come to talk to you, they want to say something to you. Because in order to do that, it takes a tremendous amount of energy and effort, not, you know, on the part of the person in the spirit world. Let's have our next question, shall we?
Why is physical mediumship so rare now?
Well, physical mediumship is so rare because it is dangerous. It's dangerous for the medium. It's, you know, not something that mediums particularly like to do. I certainly don't like to do it. It's exhausting. It, you know, takes it out of you. And quite frankly, there's no need. We've found different ways. We found different ways to communicate. I can remember many years ago, I was giving a consultation to a lady, and I don't remember who it was. It might have been a mother or a grandmother came through from the spirit world to talk to us. Instead of talking to me and saying I'm the mother and what have you, and as people usually do when they come through from the spirit world, this woman thought that that it would be much better if she could show me how she died rather than to just tell me how she died. And the next thing I know, I was clutching my throat and I was gagging and gagging. I had to run out of the room and throw up because this lady died of throat cancer. And boy, did I know it. What she'd done was she'd put her condition onto me to show me, to tell me what was going on. That is like physical mediumship. So when I recovered and got back into the room and spoke to the mother, and I had to be quite strict and say, look, I'm happy for you to talk to me. I want you to talk to me. But don't do that again. Don't do it again. Please, if you want to say something to me, great. Just, you know, say something. Just talk to me. I can hear you. I will listen to you. And again, years and years ago, mediums didn't necessarily, many mediums didn't necessarily know how to listen. And honestly, not all mediums do have that ability to listen. Some mediums only have the ability to see. They don't necessarily have the ability to hear. So, you know, what I do as a medium is I don't want to have to deal with all of that stuff. That I have enough to do, and there's enough pain and enough sorrow sometimes going on, and enough emotional trauma. I don't need you to lay it on me. I don't need to absorb, which is what mediums used to do. They would absorb the energy of the person in the spirit world because they thought that that would be the only way they could communicate. I don't need to absorb the energy of those in the spirit world. You stay there and I'll stay here, and let's just have a conversation. And if you want to show me something, or if you want to take me somewhere, I'm happy to do that. And that's a subject for another time, I think, moving forward. Is it possible for mediums to move back in time, forward in time? Is it possible for me to be sitting here talking to you, but at the same time be in someone else's living room? Is that possible? And yes, it is. I think we've touched on it a little bit before, but we should go more into detail about that, because that is also being able to move, being able to transfer, being able to move back in time while still sort of, you know, in your physical body in some sense, is a type of physical mediumship that I have experience of and that I do very, very often. I have never come across another medium who has talked about it or even who has written about it. I don't think I'm the only one it happens to, but, you know, it doesn't happen very often, and there are only certain mediums with certain types of gifts who are able to do that. Remember, I have Grey Eagle here with me, so I have a little bit of an advantage. I have Grey Eagle who helps me, teaches me, steers me, and he's able to sort of lead me into these things and to show me how to do these things in a way that is good for me and doesn't hurt me, as well as in a way that is good for everybody else. Do we have another question?
How does levitation work?
How does levitation? Oh gosh. Well, you know, I'm not a magician, and I've never actually lifted anybody. I have rattled a table a couple of times, never lifted one up, but I don't know how magicians do it. I know, and again, we're going back to, you know, certain types of physical mediumship, but, you know, it takes a tremendous amount of effort and energy. What I can tell you I've done very successfully on more than one occasion, in fact, a few occasions, is I have been able to move small objects using power, using energy, using the power of the mind. We talked about the power of the mind before, and it's amazing. The power of the mind is the most powerful and potent thing that we have. And I have been able to move objects and little ones, but I've never lifted a table. So I'm not, I'm not an expert on levitation. I'm not really sure how that would, honestly, how that would work. Sorry about that. So.
Last question. What are raps or knocks?
Raps or knocks. Okay. Well, I've done this myself. When I first started working with this stuff, I would sit there and I would say, is there anybody there? And even before I started working properly with this, years ago when my father died, I would sit there on my own in my house. Samantha would be at school or what have you, and I'd ask my dad, can you give me a sign? And the typical thing is, just knock 3 times and I'll know that you're there. Just give me a sign, show me a sign. And we all want to have those signs. Sometimes we do get someone in the spirit world who is able to knock or to rap on a table or a door. Sometimes we get someone in the spirit world who's able to move things around. I've had that happen myself. I've often sort of, had an object on the mantelpiece in one position, and then when I look back, maybe the next day it's in another position. Sometimes you think to yourself, wait a minute, that wasn't there yesterday. The easy way now to check is you take a photograph and then you come back and the next day, and if anything's moved, you can check with the photo, was it there before or not? So, but knocks and raps are an indication from the spirit world, and it's quite common for people in the spirit world to show themselves in that way. It's much more common than you would think it is.
We have a live question from Peggy.
Oh, hello, Peggy. How are you?
She's asking, is it normal to feel exhaustion after a meeting with a medium?
Well, let me see. Well, if it's the same Peggy, we're not going to say who you are, Peggy. Don't worry, we keep your privacy. But we had a Peggy here yesterday. I don't know if it's the same Peggy, but we had a Peggy here yesterday for a consultation, which was only supposed to last 50 minutes, I might tell you, but it did last something like, what was it, 2.5 hours before I could get rid of her because she just wouldn't leave. Let me see. Is it usual to feel exhaustion? Is that what she's saying? Yeah. You mean exhaustion from the client or exhaustion from the medium? Because I was exhausted afterwards. It is usual, especially if the consultation is a traumatic one or a difficult one or an emotional one. Because at the end of a session, you can be emotionally and utterly drained. You can be tremendously elated, which I hope she was. Maybe she could write and let us know how she fared with this consultation. But maybe she was exhausted because she was disappointed. I don't know. But when you have a consultation with the medium and you're talking to their loved ones in the spirit world, there's a lot of emotional stuff being talked about. There's the grief is brought to the fore and talked about. There's a lot of stuff talked about with families, with friends, dealing with people's questions. Of course it's exhausting. It's you're bound to feel completely and utterly drained afterwards. So Peggy, if you're feeling drained, we'll go and have a drink and I'll make you feel better.
I think she means, were you tired?
Oh really?
Yes.
Yes, you exhausted me.
And she said she is very elated.
She's very elated. Oh, thank goodness for that. You never know. Somebody go away, you think, oh, they've had a good session, and then they go away and say, well, it wasn't really what I wanted, or she talked about everything else, but she didn't talk about this one little thing that I wanted to talk about, but I'm glad she's elated. And yes, Peggy, after 2.5 hours, I think, yes, I was a bit exhausted. And what did I do? I think afterwards I went and had a late lunch, and
we worked on the cookbook.
Oh, we worked on the cook. Oh, yes, we worked on the cookbook, which we're having trouble with. If anybody out there knows anything at all about word editing, we are so messing up. We're at the point of, it's all together and we're editing, but we keep losing things. Yes, I know I should ask Grey Eagle. I can hear you all saying that to me. Well, why don't you just ask Grey Eagle and he'll put you to rights? But no, because I'm not going to bother Grey Eagle with all of that mundane stuff that we have to figure out by ourselves. However, having said that, hopefully the cookbook will be ready. It will either be ready before Christmas or after Christmas. If you want to pre-order it, you can pre-order it now. We don't really have a title. Do we have a title? We're calling it Rosemary in the Kitchen right now, but who knows? It could be. But just if you want to pre-order a cookbook, we don't even know how much it's going to be. It's not going to be a fortune. And it's got all of my special recipes in. And so, just email us, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com to email us. If you would like to FaceTime us, you can. I don't even know what the code is there. And if you would like to find us on Twitter.
Facebook, not FaceTime.
Oh, did I say
Yes.
FaceTime? Oh, sorry. Facebook. We are on Facebook and Twitter. Do we have a personal question?
We did. We get to that. No.
Oh, so are we not ready? I thought we were almost done, but we're not.
Well, we just had a lady join us. Her name is Wendy.
Hello, Wendy.
She says she's deaf, so she must be reading this. And she would like to know if there's any way you could give her a message from her daughter who passed away on her birthday.
Well, hello, Wendy. This is not what we do in this forum. And I'm so tempted to do this. But if I did it for you, Wendy, I'd have to do it for 1 trillion other people, and so it wouldn't quite be fair. I'm listening to Grey Eagle, and I'm listening to what Grey Eagle is saying to me. So, and this may not be for you at all, Wendy. So I'm going to just do this anyway. I think I'm going to do this anyway. So I'm talking to Grey Eagle. Grey Eagle has his hand on my shoulder, and I am connecting. I don't see anyone other than Grey Eagle, but I am connecting in a way with a young woman who actually passed quite suddenly, quite quickly. I'm going to give the message and it's just a simple, plain message, to be honest. And the message is really about, even when someone is sick, even when we know that they're dying, we don't expect them to die. We just don't expect it. When someone passes totally unexpectedly and out of the blue, in some ways it's even harder. I know that your daughter is with you, Wendy. I know that she visits with you often. I know that she sees you and participates in your life. I know that she sees you crying, and I can't tell you not to cry because it's part of the grieving process. She wishes that you wouldn't cry so much. But again, you're a mummy and you're entitled to cry. But I can tell you that she's with you, that she loves you, and that she'll be with you all the way through this holiday season. And I do hope, darling, that helps you. The worst kind of loss, I think, for anyone, and you've all heard me say it before, the worst kind of loss is the loss of a child. I'm a mummy myself, and a grandmother myself. I just, my heart goes out to all of you who are suffering these awful losses. But just know that they are there and they see you and they visit with you. Believe it, because it's real. Anything else?
No. You want to just say hi? We have another new person, Roseanne. Just say hi to Roseanne. I'm not sure where she is. She's been quiet, but she was on there.
Hello, Roseanne.
Say hi.
Hello, Roseanne. Nice to have you join us live. Anyone else? Anything else before we?
Our friend Dean's not here today, apparently.
Dean, he's ditched me. I don't
Gabriella
think so. I don't think so.
Here?
Not really. Hello, everybody. Hello, all of you who are live, and thank you for joining us. Next week we're going to be talking. The topic is going to be Earth Angels. Now, I'll say just a teeny bit about Earth Angels. An Earth Angel is not your friendly neighbor. Your Earth Angel is not that person who is, you know, good to you and kind to you or does your groceries, although we call them our angels, don't we? But an Earth Angel is actually a messenger of God who comes to this earth for the sole purpose of doing God's work and doing God's will. Earth Angels are extraordinary and special, and I've been fortunate enough to meet at least 2 or 3, maybe more, in my time. So I'm going to be telling you some stories about Earth Angels. I'm going to talk about their process, why they're here. If any of you have had an experience of an Earth Angel, we'd love to hear of it. Again, we thank you for your questions. We love them. So we're going to be talking about Earth Angels, perhaps even angels in general as well. Do they exist? Are they actually real, and all of that stuff? But Earth Angels in particular. So please, let's have your questions. Before we leave you, again, I'm going to give the question again. Again, our winner yesterday was Julia from Canada. So congratulations, Julia, and we look forward to hearing from you on our.
We've been in contact.
You've been in contact already, so there we are.
Yes.
So, all right, that's that. All right, this week's question is, and it's a 3-part question. And when do they have to have their answers in by?
Midnight next Tuesday.
Midnight next Tuesday, December the 6th. You have to have your answers in. Remember, you have to subscribe to YouTube in order to participate. And so it's a 3-part question. You must answer at least 2 parts correctly to be eligible to win. Aren't we nice? We're not going to make you get all of the parts right, just 2 of them. So here's the question. In one of my weekly videos, I have music playing. Who is singing? So we like the name of the singer. What is the song? What is the name of the song? And I have to say, and well, I won't say anything because it's so easy, but anyway. And what kind of music do I say in that same video? What kind of music do I say is my favorite type of music? Now, we did put this out yesterday. We've already had, we can't believe how many people are answering and joining in this week. So that's very interesting. All right. So, and I'm not telling you if anybody's right or not. So keep your answers coming in by midnight next Tuesday, the 6th of December. Who can believe it's the 6th of December? Instead of my answering a personal question, I'm going to tell you a little personal tidbit about my Christmas. And actually on Christmas Day on New Year's Day this year, I'll be spending Christmas and New Year's with my daughter and my grandson, Reese. And we are going to, where is it? Radio City Music Hall in New York City. We're going to see the Rockettes. Now my grandson is almost but not quite 4, so my mind is still only 3. I hate the idea that he's growing up too fast. And this will be his first Broadway or off-Broadway show, so we're very excited about that. If you're doing anything for Christmas or anything special, let us know. And because if you're cooking anything special for Christmas, let us know. I made my Christmas cake, I've made my branded fruit, I've made my what else? Limoncello. Oh yes, and I've also made my mondial. Do you know what it is? It's really French for chocolate discs, little chocolate discs. I didn't make discs, I made a chocolate bar, and I filled it with fruit. And if you get the cookbook, you too can learn how to make this simple thing. So thank you for joining us. Do we have any notices? So join us on Facebook and Twitter. Email us, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. Send in the answers to this new question by next Tuesday. And in the meantime, please, please, please have a blessed day.